Well, for everybody who doesn't know, even though you probably should know, this is JD Delay. Obviously, he's been like taking over the internet. He's been covering a lot of the Diddy stuff lately, and like he's just covered a lot of important cases that have hit kind of the mainstream media. So, JD, I'll let you tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do, and just describe yourself.
So, part of my story is that I was a drug addict. I had childhood trauma. We can go into that. I don't know if that's something that you want to go into in full detail on here or not, but
Up to
I
you,
had
whatever you feel safe sharing.
Okay, so I was sexually assaulted as a child when I was 6 years old,
Okay.
and that trauma kind of was too much for me to process at that age, as it is for a lot of kids, and it sort of manifested in bad behaviors, as it often does with kids
Mhm.
who don't know how to express what's going on with themselves. So my parents didn't know what was going on because I didn't feel safe to tell them. I didn't know if that made me gay or like what was going on,
Right.
and so they took me to a doctor because like I was exhibiting these behaviors, and I'm also very ADHD, but he just said, "Yo, dude is ADHD," and he's like, "Let's get him on some meds." And so he hands me this bottle of pills, and he's like, "This is going to make you normal. This is going to make you like the other kids. This is going to help you fit in, right?" And
Yeah.
they were amphetamines.
Yeah.
And that's just what they were doing in the 80s in the US when kids were rambunctious. And I was a whole handful. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm still ADHD to the bone, but
Same.
that sort of predisposed me to liking stimulants. And as I progressed, in years, that ended up taking me down a very dark road. And I became a career criminal for about 20 years. Never any sort of, skin crimes or, goof stuff or anything like that. I was into property crimes, crimes that made me money, a lot of
Yeah.
fraud. I stole a lot of cars. I went to prison. And in 2019, the Secret Service and the SWAT team actually gave me the desperation that I needed and the consequences that I needed to be able to change my life.
Wow.
I finally, I'd had a lot of consequences and a lot of rock bottoms in my life, but this was the one where I just threw my hands in the air when they ran up on me, and I was like, cool, man, it's over, it's done. I need this to be over. I thought that I was going to go and spend like a lot of time in prison, but a judge gave me an opportunity to go to a treatment center that absolutely changed my life. And there were men there who mentored me, and I took it very, very seriously. I didn't watch TV. I didn't do social media. I didn't mess with girls. I wanted to know why I was messed up and what I needed to do to fix it. And between going through outpatient, inpatient, sober living and therapy, I really was able to find a place where I was actually able to like who I was. And I still work on loving myself daily because that's a daily
Mhm.
process.
Definitely.
But I became a recovery coach, a peer support recovery specialist, a smart recovery facilitator. I started Narcan outreach distribution in the
Wow.
hood where no one else would go in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I was able to get 2 years of house arrest instead of going to prison again. And my life has been on a huge, huge upswing ever since then. And I own my own recovery coaching business, and I do content that hopefully helps some people. And I get people that tell me that my content helps them. And that's one of the best blessings I could ever have in life.
When I was going through more of your content recently, I actually realized that the first video that I had ever seen of yours was saved in my Instagram. And it was one of your Narcan videos where you were responding to somebody who was saying, like, if you're distributing this stuff, pardon me, then you're just encouraging it. And like, that didn't really make sense to me. Like, selling band-aids doesn't mean that you're encouraging people to just go injure themselves. Like, it's there just in case you need it, you know what I mean? So I just really admired that because my city is runs very rampant with drugs. So it's overdoses, and I've lost a lot of my friends to overdoses and suicides, and but primarily overdoses. So I think what you do is so important. And just for anybody watching, if they did want to get a Narcan kit, maybe for themselves, for people that they know, maybe just to carry it around. If you've got a messy city like that, where can they find one?
So I don't know if they work with Canada or the UK, but here in the United States, there's a great outfit called End Overdose. And if you go to endoverdose.com, They will send you Narcan for free. Now,
Wow.
generally, most states at this point, you can get it at pharmacies. Some states have it for free, some states do not. But End Overdose will ship anywhere in the country. They're also, they'll ship you fentanyl testing strips in states where that's legal. I know, like, states like Florida are still iffy about letting people get fent test strips because they think it's going to encourage the behavior or whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's End Overdose is a great resource, and they're super cool people. So
Yeah.
yeah, they'll ship it to you. I think all you have to pay for is the price of shipping.
Isn't that a ridiculous thought, that to think that like giving people a tool to make sure that they have clean drugs is like somehow encouraging it? Like I just don't like not giving them that option will discourage it, as if like seeing people die isn't supposed to be discouraging enough. Like it is, but that's just not understanding addiction. Like people have addictions and they want to make sure, especially nowadays, that that their stuff is clean. Some people like to party too. Let's be real. Like let's be honest. We're all adults here. Some people like to go out, drink some beer, and like do a couple wines. I personally don't see any problems with that. If you're not like going home and abusing your family members and it's not an issue, like to each their own, but everybody should definitely be able to make sure that what they're putting in their body is clean and not going to kill them.
So here's the thing is that I lost one of my kids. He was 23 years old. His name was Alan. Rest in peace, Alan. We lost him in
Oh,
2022. He had just graduated from barber college and he had just gotten a great job and he was going out to celebrate. He had a few too many drinks and somebody was like, "Hey, do you want this line to sober you up?" What they didn't know is that what they had gotten was like 100% fentanyl sold to them as cocaine. And Alan didn't make it. Nobody had Narcan, nobody had fent testing strips. So I'm a huge advocate for harm reduction and being able to get people what they need to. I can't party safely. It could be the safest shit in the world. And myself, I'm gonna run it till I end up back in prison. The feds are gonna kick my
damn.
door in. That's how my party ends. But for people who are able to do that, who have that magical superpower, I don't, I feel a tinge of jealousy, but I'm like, good for them, man. If you could do it without
Yeah.
ruining your life, I'm happy for you, man. I have no problem with people who drink or use drugs in a responsible way. And if it ever becomes an issue, I'm more than happy to help anybody that I possibly can.
Yeah, you just like I'll continue to amaze me because the more that I learn about your story, I think there's like, I don't know if you're a religious person, if you believe in like the universe or energies or whatever you believe in. I really don't think it's a coincidence that like our paths crossed because we have such similar backstories, meaning like, like I was molested as well as a child. It started at age 4. So that's like, that's trauma that I really understand. And I went through a lot of, physical abuse, neglect, just like every form of abuse as a child before I ran away when I was 9. And so, I was constantly being misunderstood in like school as like a bad kid, and I was being put in the bad kid programs, and I was put on Adderall, which I'm pretty sure you guys have there. It's an ADHD medication. Yeah. So, and then when I was like 16, I started like recreationally randomly binge using like methamphetamine. So I would like binge use it for, a week and then not touch it for a month and then go hang out with those friends again and I'm smoking meth again. So, I like it was kind of an aha moment for me when you were like, maybe putting me on those stimulants, like, predispositioned me to my addiction. I think that definitely could have been a part of it for me too. But I deeply understand like how trauma, especially when it's not understood or known how to deal with it. Cause like you're older than me. I'm 27 and they didn't know what they were doing when I was growing up. So I can't even imagine if you go like 10 years prior to that, what that even would have looked like. And it just really it damages you. So, like, similar to you, I went down a bad path. I grew up in social services and I wasn't involved in like the theft crimes or, any like scams or anything like that. I was like, primarily a drug dealer. And I kicked in doors sometimes. So like that's just what I was involved with. Just whatever it is, what it is. That's my past. But when I discovered I was pregnant with my daughter, I got pregnant with her on birth control, and I was 19. and abortion just like wasn't my thing. So I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. And I immediately got off the streets. I stopped drug dealing downtown. I stopped like just putting myself in unsafe situations. And she really saved my life. And here we are years later, and I'm successful. I'm able to meet really cool people like you, and it's just a blessing. So like honestly, God bless you. And I'm so sorry to like, your inner child and what happened. And like I'm so sorry for the loss of your son. May God rest his soul.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I nothing ever caught me. I could do any single drug on the face of the planet until one night I was actually going to college, and I was bartending at the same time to pay my way through. And I was super tired. I wasn't getting any sleep. And somebody came up to me and they were like, I was super opposed to meth, right? And
Mhm.
somebody was like, hey, man, if you do some of this, you'll have the energy to get through. And it's just the same thing as Adderall. You've had Adderall before, right? And I'm like, yeah, I was raised on Ritalin and Cylert and Adderall.
I know all
And
about it.
so
Yeah.
like that's literally how it convinced me. I was like, you know what? It is the same thing. Like I was
I've been
just
on
being
this my whole
stupid,
life since I was
right?
13.
And
What's the
yeah,
problem?
so literally the first time though that I did meth, I had just been convinced into it, and I had never gotten addicted to any drug before that. I had smoked a lot of weed, I'd done acid, I'd done a little bit of cocaine, and I didn't really like it. Ecstasy. Like I'd run the whole party drug scene because I was a big party kid. And then as soon as I hit meth one time, I was like, this is my personality now, and I'm gonna ruin my life with it for the next 20 years. And that's unfortunately what happened until like I got interventions from like my own personal. I do believe in God, but I'm not like a religious person. I don't really subscribe to any one particular religion, but I have a personal relationship with a creator of my understanding. There's a lot of things in every religion that I can't get down with. There's you
Yeah.
get 34 virgins when you die if you kill other people. There's things in the Bible that just seem kind of man written and not like from God to me. So like I
Yeah.
use my conscience and I use my personal relationship with God, but I start every day with a prayer and I end every day thanking God for the day that I've been given. And since I've been doing that, like even I was a very angry atheist for a long time. And when I actually came to a place where I just started speaking to whatever's out there, thank you, because this is amazing. And my life has just gotten better ever since. So,
Good for you. I have never been through any I never got any support through my addictions because I didn't want it. I was like incredibly stubborn. So like for methamphetamine, I was a binge user, and like for those who don't know what that is, it's not daily use. It's you do it, you binge it, you do it for like 1, 2, 3 days, maybe a week, whatever, and then you don't do it for a while. So I hadn't quite picked up on like maybe the addiction aspect, like the fiending for it. You know what I mean? But 2.5 years into doing that, I started to realize like I'm wanting to buy it. I'm purchasing it myself. I'm, doing these things that I'd never really done. So because I was a social services kid, social services like, helps you with like your independent living, it's called. So you can like live on your own. So I lived on my own at 16. So if they found out that I was on drugs and like doing all this stuff, they would have taken it away. So I unfortunately couldn't ask for any support and had to get clean off of that myself. And I don't know like how you used it when you used, but I smoked it. And in order to quit smoking it, I started snorting it because I'm like, this is so awful. It will surely get me to stop. And it did. It was awful. It took a while, but I did it. But one thing that not a lot of people know about me is that I'm like 9 months clean. I think almost 9 months or just over 9 months clean from cocaine. Thank you. When my best friend died a few years ago, it like really, it just, it just really broke me is like the only way I know how to describe it. Like I've lost a lot of friends. Like the majority of the people that I grew up with are now dead. But losing my best friend was like, I still grieve him every day. And so instead of working through that grief and thinking about it, I just masked it and tried to mask it with work and like, I'm ashamed to say that, like, I'm a mom, not because I'm ashamed to be a mom, but because, like, having addictions and being a parent is, like, something people don't talk about, and people are automatically like, "Oh, you're a bad mom," but, like, I have my kids 50-50, so I was, like, using when I didn't have my kids, and that was my crutch. Because when I have my kids, I'm distracted, I'm happy, but then when they go to their dads for a week and I'm all by myself with just my thoughts, that was too much for me. So I utilized it to cope, to be able to work, you know what I mean? So I was finally able to quit. And what helped me quit was an app called I Am Sober. This is like not an endorsement. They don't know that I exist. This is 100% genuine. It's an app called I Am Sober, and they have like probably every single type of addiction that's out there. Like even things I didn't even recognize, like ketamine, being addicted to like ketamine, or there's like another one, there's coffee, there's binge eating, there's anorexia, there's literally everything you can think of. And it's like this all inclusive app that tracks your progress, connects you with a community. It's really amazing and it helped me. So if anybody out here is like struggling with addiction, do that. If you can't
That's
afford to like go to classes, or if there is no classes, or if you have shame, it's awesome.
That's great because there's a Kaiser Permanente study that where they actually were looking at eating disorders, people who would binge eat, people who would purge, people with obesity issues, the whole spectrum of eating disorders. And what they realized is it's an addiction, and all addictions have the same basic like neuro effects in the brain. You're hitting the limbic system in your brain,
Yeah.
and creating unhealthy neural pathways to get those rewards of things like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin.
Yeah.
And so, it's all basically the same, whether you're a gambling addict or a sex addict or a meth addict, or, you're addicted to pornography, like whatever the case is, eating, it's all basically the same thing. So, I think that there's a lot of people in the addiction spectrum who don't get the help that they need because people don't see it as an actual addiction. And my wife is in recovery, but not from drugs. She's in recovery from eating disorders. So we're both
Good,
in
good for her.
recovery.
I hope she's doing well. I know, I understand that very much. I hope she's doing okay.
When I met her, Roma, I called her the danger twig because I was scared that she was gonna like get blown away. And she loved that. She laughed. But we worked through recovery together. And if one of us ever has an issue where we feel we're starting to backslide, we call each other on our bullshit. And if she were to relapse tomorrow, it's not going to trigger me to a relapse. If I
Right.
were to have a hiccup in my recovery, it's not going to cause her to have a hiccup in hers.
That's
So
good.
it's
It's
it's really
healthy.
cool the way that it works out.
Yeah, a lot of people, I like what you talked about, what you touched on about, addictions and like, the dopamine and the limbic system. Because not a lot of people know this. I think they just think I'm like some like tattooed jailbird or something. But I'm post-secondary educated. So I have two post-secondary educations, one in funeral services and embalming. Yes, believe it or not,
Wow,
I could embalm you. Number
that's
two
lit. That's
is in
goth as fuck, bro.
it's in addictions and disabilities with a specialization in fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which is it's a neurological disorder that kind of runs similar spectrum wise to autism, but it's where your brain is affected because your mother either it's like for alcohol, but it's kind of an umbrella term for like any substances. It could be nicotine, it could be meth, it could be cocaine, it could be whatever. And one thing that we learned and are like very heavily taught is that all addictions stem from trauma. And our prime example, just very quickly, was a study, the first study we did, where a guy was really addicted to root beer, like always had to have it. And it wasn't until he went into intensive therapy that he remembered and figured out that his really abusive father used to come home and drink root beer every night. So his addiction, even something as simple as pop, was it was rooted in trauma. And so when we use addictions and we use substances, it causes to put it into like a visual, almost like a seizure in the limbic system, which controls our emotions. So while we're getting like dopamine and all this fun stuff and we're feeling invincible, there's also like a lot of negative shit. There's a lot of like down that's happening, a lot of impulsivity. So it's just a cool little tip about how addiction affects your brain.
See, I had to learn what was going on. Like NA and AA definitely helped me in the beginning with my recovery. But there were things that I didn't like about it. It's a lot cultish. They want you to admit that you're powerless, which I think is demeaning to people who are already downtrodden. And they
Yeah.
want you to identify as an addict or an alcoholic. Like, bro, I'm here. I'm here, dog. Like, if I get cancer, do I have to go in and say, hi, my name is JD and I'm cancer?
Is that
Or,
my label? Is
my
that
name is
my
JD and
identity now? This
yeah,
is
my
who I
name is
am?
JD and
Yeah.
I'm anal seepage. Like I feel like it does damage to people. So, what I really what I like about smart recovery is that it teaches you the science, the neuroscience, the psychology behind it. And I needed to learn why am I fucked up because I knew I
Yeah.
needed to know what was going on up here for me to be able to fix it. And to me, it's mind, body, and spirit. So
Right.
for my recovery, I do something for each every single day and I build it and I have a daily recovery program because the second I stop working on moving forward, I know I'm going to start sliding backwards. I can't get comfortable. I'll die.
Mhm.
Literally, I know that. But it's been really cool for me. I've really learned that I work really well with cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's just been a huge blessing in my life. And smart recovery is a great option for anybody out there who is like me. And you can't just be like, okay, well, I'm spiritually defective, so I need to just submit to a cultish program. Smart recovery is a great option.
It's a big misconception about me that like I've been to prison because of my tattoos. No, I just was tattooed primarily before even the age of 18. So like clearly none of them are good. Duh. Um, so I've never been to prison. I've been to jail, but I've never been to like prison. You've been to prison.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, you are like very well, like primarily known. I call you the more American version of Chris Hansen. Like you're like the new Chris Hansen. You're like what we need in society, like the no bullshit, because like back pedophile hunting was just like, oh, so tell me why you like doing this to little girls with like a camera, and now it's just like here's the wood chipper, thank you. So that's really what we're needing. So I have to ask, like, where did you get your passion for like we're just going to call it pedophile hunting? Is it because of like what you went through as a kid? Is it because of maybe like I know that your guys' experience with them in jail is very limited. They're PC, they're on a whole other unit. But like, what was it? Your time in jail? Was it your childhood? Like, what inspired you to be like so passionate about getting these guys, other than the fact that they're disgusting and it should make anybody angry?
So there's a few things that I need to address here, but I want to start off by giving my homeboy Chris Hansen a shout out. I was recently introduced to him. He's an amazing dude. Just to be referenced in the same category as him, I feel honored. Huge shout out to you, Chris. We talk regularly now, and he is the real deal. He is about as real as they come. He's an authentic person, and he's passionate about what he does. As far as
I would love to interview him.
yeah,
God
he's
bless.
super cool. I'm actually probably going to be working with him again out here in February. And I'm really stoked about that. As far as where my passion for it came from, I think that a lot of my life was determined by me being molested at 6 years old. I think that a lot of my appearance, a lot of my personality, unfortunately, comes from backlash from that because I didn't have the protection that I needed in that moment. And I think that in somewhere subconsciously in my head, it made me want to be someone who could protect myself and protect others. I think that just psychologically it makes sense that because that happened to me and I never felt safe after that, that I molded myself into somebody who could protect myself and who could keep others that were vulnerable safe. And I think that really instilled that deep inside of me. There were periods of time where I actively would online, I had a bait profile. And back when Facebook was like the biggest thing, we were hunting them on there, and we weren't involving law enforcement. It took me a long time to get to a point where I would like actually turn them in. But what we were doing was we were exposing them to everyone in their community, their church, a lot of them, their wives, their jobs. We get them kicked out of they get divorced with their wife, they get kicked out of their church, they'd lose their fucking job.
Good.
Everyone in their community would know who they were. We had one dude who was actually involved actively in Boy Scouts, and we shut him the fuck down. And
JD's out here doing God's work. That's crazy.
Well, and here's the thing is that like I was actually this was in a period of my life where I was clean from everything except alcohol, and I was managing my alcohol use pretty well, which I don't think that I can maintain that long term. But the things that were sent to me by these predators fucked me up in my mental health so bad that it ended up tanking me. And I ended up going in a really dark spiral as far as like my use. And it just sent me to a bad place. So I can't do that level of stuff anymore. So for me, being able to, find them online, expose them, and these days, like, there was a dude recently here, there was no way we were going to be able to get to him physically. I called the sheriff's department on him and gave them his exact location. They didn't take it seriously enough, so I called the FBI. And then when the FBI and Internet Crimes Against Children looked into it, they ended up finding that he was involved in child pornography distribution that he was making himself. He was already a registered sex offender with over 160,000 followers on TikTok. He was actively talking about teaching other people's children how to make love from ages 8 to 12 years old. And they hit him with a shitload of charges. And he lived out of a tiny home he built on the back of a truck. We got his house taken away, his truck taken away.
I remember that. I remember this case. Yeah. What was his name again?
Jesse Wayne Stark. Yes. So I was able to get this dude exposed. In fact, like I think it like 13 million views on TikTok now. So a lot of people have seen him, especially in the area where he lives. People see this dude, people know this dude. He's currently I don't know if he's in custody now, but they let him out on bond for a little bit because he was working actively to take down the ring of people he was working with to get a reduced sentence. But even with reduced sentencing, he's still probably looking at close to 30 years in prison.
Yeah, so, they're not like, oh, you helped get the other scumbags, you're fine, you can go.
No, he did not get off like that, but he was looking at a lot of time because of the things that they found in his hard drive. And he was in a major distribution and trading with other pedophiles of child explicit images that they were making. So this was them abusing children, filming it, and then back and forthing this stuff. And they've been able to get all of those images off of the internet now of those kids. They haven't, I don't think they've been able to identify all of those kids, but they've identified a large number of them, and those kids are now being given services and, mental health help and stuff like that. So, and some people consider me, like, because I've been to prison, because I was a career criminal, I'm now reformed. I don't consider myself a criminal anymore. I consider myself a part of my community. Some people consider me a rat for getting a child predator off the streets. I'm cool with that, bro. Like the code that I lived by started.
Fuck it. Yeah, there's worse things to snitch about.
There's a bunch of kids not getting raped right now because I did that. And the code that I lived by was the old school code, and the number one rule was no women, no children. And then it was like, don't snitch your homies out came after that. But no women, no children superseded everything in the old school convict code. So as far as I'm concerned, you're hurting kids, women, the elderly, disabled, bro. I don't care, bro. I'll run that shit all day long.
I have this vision that I if I got everything I wanted in life, it would come true. Where you and I have our own TV show that's like Chris Hansen, but like new age. You're sitting there like, what did you say to that little girl? And I'm over there like, you about to become someone's bitch. You know what I'm saying? That would be an amazing TV show. Like we would seriously, that would get so many views. Like you and I need to come together and pitch that to somebody, because that would be like incredible. We have similar stories. We both like have backgrounds coming from predators who have done that. We're both pretty intimidating when we want to be, and we're hilarious. So like, yo.
I think the person to pitch it to would be Chris Hansen, because he has his own network, True Blue, and he still does his shows. He just had to change the name, because the reason that To Catch a Predator was taken down was because they caught like a high-level politician, and then he killed himself. And so they shut To Catch a Predator down because of that. Yeah, right? The trash took itself out? I'm mad.
These people can't hurt children anymore.
Oh no, a chomo jumped in the wood chipper on his own. Oh don't know, but yeah. So Chris has made his own network, and he has his own thing going on with Takedown with Chris Hansen, which is amazing. He does
I
all
love it.
sorts of new
I watch
episodes.
him.
I get like inside scoops sometimes. Like I'll get like a video of a dude booty ass naked in a kitchen, and I'm like, what the fuck did? And then I look and I'm like, oh, okay, this is dude got butt naked for Chris Hansen and didn't even know it. And
It's
I
not the
see
group
things.
chat with the boys. That's Chris Hansen. Okay, good.
Yeah, dog, it's crazy. And I wanted to address one more thing that you said because I think there might be a misunderstanding between how it is in Canada and the US, but like most places in the US, they put the chomos in a lot of places, they put the chomos in with the actual human beings. Because pedophiles, to
That's
clarify,
such an American thing
pedophiles
to
aren't
do.
fucking people, dog. To clarify, and a lot of places here in the U.S., like where I did my time in Oregon, they tried to separate them and they gave them their own prison. And the pedophiles sued because they didn't want to be housed with other pedophiles, and they actually won a discrimination lawsuit. And DOC was like, "I bet." So they
Why do
started
these
sending
people
them.
still have human rights? Like, we should really have a basis of like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so for example, like, nobody was saying, no, you shouldn't go shoot Hitler in the head. Everybody collectively was like, this guy gotta die. You know, like, fuck his human rights. Don't care how you get him, just kill him. Why are pedophiles getting more courtesy? Like, I don't understand. Like, they should be like, just kill them. Like, nobody would be mad. The only people mad are pedophiles or family members of pedophiles. And although it may suck to like lose a family member and it's not their fault that their family member is like a monster, it's called the greater good. Like, don't be selfish.
Here's the issue though, as to why they get protections in the United States, and I think probably Canada as well. I mean, you guys have Trudeau. You know what I'm saying? You guys
Not
have
anymore.
Trudeau in office. Yeah, not anymore. Hey, but
Hey!
we have a lot of like undercover pederasts lurking around in politics here, and they are helping to make laws and create laws, so they might not be separated, but what they do is they give them extra protections. Whereas if you go smash out a pedophile for being a pedophile in prison, then they will hit you with a hate crime for that because you are discriminating against them for their crime. Now there's no other hate crime you can catch based on your crime. There's no
Yeah,
other
hate
crime
crimes are only
that gets
like
you
a protected
protections.
class. So
That
bro.
exactly.
What?
You said the outside part from the inside. So yeah, no, they're protected by hate crime laws. So what you got to do is you got to walk up to them and be like, "Did you just call me a bitch?" Bam! You know what I'm saying? You got to pretend like you're beating them up for any other reason than what they did. Um, so that's kind of like the
Wow.
catch 22. If you can make that pop, then you might not catch, because if they hit you with that hate crime, that's an extra 5 years on your sentence, dog. And
Here's how it works in Canada. If I come in and I'm, say I'm a snitch or I've murdered a child or I've raped a child, okay? And this is the same goes for women as it does men. So like, and there are women who commit these crimes too. So if I'm a woman and I walk into jail and these are my charges, the jail will say to me, for your own safety, and so we aren't liable, you need to go to PC, protective custody. It's their own unit. They're in there together. I don't know what they do. I don't know if they're on 24-hour lockdown. I don't think so, but it's just their own unit. They can't mingle with anybody else. Now, if I say, this is a violation of my human rights, I have a right to be, out in Gen Pop with everybody else, then they'll make me sign a form that says, like, if I get killed, if something happens to me, the jail isn't liable. And then what will happen is the guards will go around and they'll tell everybody that you're a pedophile, a diddler, a goof, basically. That's what they'll do. And then something will happen to you and like they'll just go straight back to PC. But they're not even safe in PC because like you have to think about like where their products are coming from, their food mainly, which is, I saw you touch on that. Like, you're definitely getting turds in your food. Like, if you think that feces aren't smeared on your food, you're crazy.
turds come. People are skeeting in it. Broken glass. I've
The
seen.
medical unit is like, wow, why are all these pedophiles getting sick? What is
Yeah,
happening? Okay,
it's
so I want to
crazy. It's
I want
amazing.
to
Yeah,
ask
and
you something.
Yes.
which you and I have a differ of opinions on. Not really differ. It's like a weird middle ground that I think is like a good conversation to be had,
Okay.
especially because nobody here can misconstrue me as like a pedophile sympathizer
Mhm.
because like I was literally diddled as a kid, so we're not going to go there. In post-secondary, the biggest thing we're taught about, addictions and traumas, is it's all about like prevention, right? So when we're talking about the pedophiles that have already committed crimes, they've already hurt children, they've already acted on it, kill them. They're gone. Put them in a wood chipper. If we're talking about prevention, we are taught basic things like don't talk to strangers, don't sit on a stranger's lap, don't let someone touch your private parts, don't let someone show you their private parts. But what parents often forget to say is if that does happen, if any of these boundaries are crossed, it's not your fault and I'm not going to be mad at you. These are things that parents forget to say. So a lot of the times what happens is these kids are like left feeling like it was their fault, like, oh, like I was told not to cross this boundary and I did. And so there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of feeling like they can't get help. And so like my question is, in your opinion, do you think that there is any prevention methods, maybe someplace that these like pedophiles can disclose they're having these thoughts? Is there any way to like prevent these children from getting hurt and not put all the responsibility on them?
Are you straight?
I think so. I like titties sometimes, but like, yeah, I'm straight.
I feel like
Who
that's
doesn't?
fair. You know what I'm saying? Can,
Yeah.
can anybody convince you? Is there a therapist you can go see? Is there a church you could go to? Is there anything that can convince you that you don't like the Dell anymore and that you only like chicks? Because I know that there's not a single way, a form of therapy that's going to convince me that I'm going to put a pecker in me and I'm going to like it. That's just not going to happen, bro. Like, and
Right.
I'm not homophobic. I have no problem with gay people at all whatsoever. I'm never going to try to change them. I think they're
Yeah.
born the way they are, and anybody who's into consenting adults, I don't fucking care, bro. Have
Right.
fun with it. Do it. You know what I'm saying? I hope you get all the comes, bro. All the orgasms in the world. If it's with kids, I don't think you can change that. I think they're predisposed to be wired that way, and I don't think that we can change it. And do I think that it's entirely their fault? If you're born that way, I don't think it's your fault. Do I think that it's a risk that society can have? You are a fucking ticking time bomb to give a child a life sentence of trauma and pain and anguish and turmoil inside that they may or may not ever recover from. I don't know who I would have been if that man hadn't done that to me for his own, like, few minutes of whatever. It's disgusting, it's grotesque. My life, the course of my life, was changed forever with that. Do I think that it's a risk as a society that we should have? No, but we're also not going to know that somebody's a pedophile until they actually act on it, because ain't
Right.
nobody gonna come out and be like, hey, you know what I feel like doing? Kids, bro. They don't do it, bro. They instead they get jobs at Disney, or they become pastors, or they get jobs at schools or daycares, or they buy ice cream trucks. You know what I'm saying? Or they're creepy uncles, like, and you don't know until they actually act on it, because nobody wants to be friends with somebody or family with somebody and go, you know who I think is a squid goof? That guy.
Do you feel like society studies pedophilia enough, or is it one of those things that they're like they don't want to study it because they feel like they don't want to like they feel like maybe it's like sympathizing or something? Like do you feel like they study them enough?
I should connect you with my friend Dr. Leslie. She is one of the leading like, she has so many different degrees that I don't even know how to refer to Dr. Leslie, but she's one of the leading psychiatrists on the subject, and she has worked with them incarcerated, she's worked with them on the streets. She has tried every type of therapy, and she quit doing what she was doing because she was like, there is no way to rehabilitate these people. And the
Right.
metric by which they used was incredibly interesting. So they would use lie detector tests in conjunction with, so you know how, have you ever seen a lie detector test where they're checking your heart rate and all of this? Well, they actually put a catheter thing up their wee wee, and they would show them images to see if they were still getting excited by images of children, not naked images of children, but
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
images
say,
of children.
What's their
No,
source material here? Is there
just
what the
just
fuck?
images just images of children, and I believe that they used ones that were AI generated, so they weren't exploiting any child's pictures. I
Good.
think they were
Okay,
just
that's smart.
AI generated images of non-existent children, but
Okay.
there was no way to effectively treat them. And she
Right.
worked on this for years in prisons, on the streets, and she eventually was just like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, because this is like trying to, it's like trying to can't count sand at the beach.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, bro. It's
Wow.
like conversion therapy doesn't work regardless of what you're trying to convert, man.
Right. And the reason why I ask about research is because, okay, for example, my daughter is 7, and even though she hasn't hit puberty, she has no concept of like sexuality yet. I know that she's gonna like boys because she's always got a crush at school. She's always saying Simon Cowell is hot, things like this. So yeah, Simon Cowell. I know. I was
Simon
like, wow,
Cowell.
girl. But you know what's funny is I had a crush on him when I was a kid, so it's a full circle moment. But what I'm saying is that there's I can kind of have a grasp of like what her sexuality is or is going to be. You hear parents of kids who are gay, and they're like, the kids come out to the parents, they're like, oh honey, like I knew that when you were 6, like we knew this, right? So my question is how much research, if at all, and do you think it would be a good idea to put more research into more of the preventative measures, like, for example, serial killers? We have a lot of information now that I know that some of the signs on like if my son or my daughter is going to grow up and start like murdering people, right? So there's ways that they treat animals. There's, some ODD behavior. There's like a lot of things now that we kind of have a formula and we say, okay, if my kid is hitting this, and this, their predisposition to be a serial killer. So we need to get some help. Do you think that there's anything like that for pedophiles? Is there any way that we could figure out, like maybe from children, if this is like what they're into?
So look, I'm never going to be the guy who pretends to know everything. And I don't know if there's an answer to that. I think that, like, one of the markers of being attracted to children, catching that early on seems like it might be hard because
Your
children are
child's
generally
attracted to
attracted
other
to other
children,
children, but we're supposed to grow out of that shit, homie. You know what I'm saying?
right?
When I was a kid, I liked to eat cereal and watch cartoons, and I don't do that shit no more. I grew out of it, so I don't know what the early markers would be, and I don't know if that's something that's relevant and congruent throughout different people who are monsters, creatures, not
Right.
people. And I don't have that answer, so
Yeah.
I'm not educated enough on that to be able to give a proper opinion on it. So usually when I don't know something, I just man up and I say, hey, I don't know, because I know a lot of
I
guys feel
respect that.
compelled to have an opinion on everything and act like they know everything. That's not me, bro. Like, I don't know, but it seems to me my uneducated opinion would be, we can't get it super young because kids is supposed to be attracted to kids when they kids. Is it when they turn 21 and they're dating I just don't
The
know.
16, 17-year-olds, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And like, so here in the States, I don't know if you guys have this. Do you guys have statutory laws?
Yeah, it's 16 with a 3-year gap.
16 with a 3-year gap. So that's what we have in states where we have Romeo and Juliet laws here. Romeo and Juliet laws is what allows that 3-year gap, but the age of consent in a lot of states, the majority of states, is 18, some is 16, some is 17. So, like in the state of Oregon, if we see some dude on the yard in prison and he's like, I got a statutory case, like, we have Romeo and Juliet laws, bitch. That means that you were over the age of 18 and there was more than a 3-year gap. So what, you was with a 14-year-old, a 15,
Yeah.
oh, okay, your paperwork says 11. Yeah, we smashing you the fuck out.
Yeah.
So that's just what it is, bro. You're gonna get some new breathing holes, bro. You ever breathed out of your neck before? Because you're gonna be like Aquaman. We giving you gills, bitch. So it's always interested me. I didn't know if you guys had statutory laws and Romeo and Juliet laws, because there's so many differences, man. And
Yeah.
I am, in honor of all of your your community tonight, I'm wearing my Make Pedophiles Afraid Again hat, the Canada version. We didn't know what else to do, so we put a maple leaf on that bitch. because we had the shirt that has the Canadian flag and it looked doper than our American flag shirt. So I was like, how do we have a Canadian flag shirt that says "Make Pedophiles Afraid Again" that's doper than our American flag shirt? So we're coming out with a couple remixes to try to keep up with your dope ass flag.
I appreciate that a lot. We have some Canadians here in the chat, but shockingly, the majority of my audience is actually the U.S., with my biggest states being the South. It goes Texas, Chicago, New York, Las Vegas. Those are my cities. So
Yo,
you guys, that's why everybody thinks I'm American.
those are some of my biggest states too.
Man,
So
we
I'm
could
super
really do
stoked on
some
that.
like some content like magic here. I feel like we need to do that TV show. But
I'm
just to touch on what you were saying before, what we were talking about, I think that after sitting and thinking about it for like probably my whole life. I mean, who hasn't been touched as a child and doesn't spend time thinking about like how can we prevent this from happening to other people? I think the answer is number one, I don't understand why we're not lobbying to just like flat out kill pedophiles. They're taking up the fucking resources. They don't need to sit in prison longer than their trial. If you're found guilty, bye. Like I don't understand why that's not a thing. Um, but because on the other hand, I people are always saying like, oh, if you want to prevent pedophilia, just kill them, and that will make them stop touching children. Well, no, that's going to make them sneakier. So why don't we do two things? Why don't we kill them for touching children, right? And then figure out like some deeper ways to educate our kids, because at the end of the day, like pedophilia is one of those things that's like the most socially unacceptable sexuality to have, even above like dead people and dogs. Like children, you are just bottom of the bottom. So people who have this sexuality and have these desires are going to be the last people to like ever let you know. You're going to find out another way, you know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of it comes down to educating our kids. But I think that we need to educate them differently and stop being so mundane about like, oh, stranger danger. Don't do this, don't do that. Like I've told my kids when I educate my children, I say like nobody is supposed to ask to see your private parts. That could be me, grandma, grandpa, anybody I have in my house. It could be your father, it could be your best friend. Like we have to extend that and let them know like it could come from family members, but also watching who the hell your kids are hanging out with. Because for me, I knew a lot of kids growing up that were like not molested or like sexually assaulted at a young age by family members, but by like neighborhood kids. So like, really vet the parents, know where your kids are going, have these conversations with them.
I don't do sleepovers with my kids. And it's funny you should mention that because I was talking to I have an
Me neither.
8-year-old son. I have an 8-year-old son that I was talking to, having the talk because I have the talk with him at regular intervals. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it's good to have refreshers and check in and just, check the
Yeah.
temperature with him, make sure, nobody's tried to touch you. He knows exactly what pedophiles are.
Yeah.
And I was telling him, so your spots and nobody gets to see those and nobody can touch those. And he looks at me and he goes, the other my doctor. And I'm like, were you at a checkup? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's okay, bro.
But
That's
good job,
okay.
good
Like,
job checking. Good job. No
yeah,
questions.
yeah, no,
Good
I
questions.
love
Good
the
job.
communication. But it took him a minute to get it out. He was like, uh, and I'm like, did somebody touch him? And he goes, my
Your
doctor.
heart must have been
Yeah, dog.
pounding.
Yeah, and I was like, it's okay. Doctors
Well, I'm
doctors
going
do
back
that.
to jail. Fuck.
Yeah, doctors do that every couple years, but it's okay. Just wait till you get over 40. They're gonna start putting fingers inside of you and making you into a puppet, dog.
We're gonna be touching you somewhere else pretty soon. Don't worry.
So I've seen a couple people in the chat talk about the idea of castration, and I want to give my opinion on castration, and then I'd love to hear yours. So here's the thing about castration. I think that now personally, I do believe in one type of conversion therapy. It's called wood chipper conversion therapy. And dead pedophiles do not reoffend. It sucks that we don't have a way to, because by the time they get to the wood chipper, that means they've already hurt a child. And I find that unacceptable, but I don't know the answer to that. I would love it if there were precursors that we could know, okay, this person is headed towards being a diddler. And we need to, castrate them or do whatever we need to do preemptively. But castration has some castration has some success, because it does, taking away a man's testicles does stop the testosterone production, which makes them less sexual beings. But I don't think it's entirely sexual, because a lot of these dudes go on to use
Power.
fingers. It's a power thing. It's taking the innocence from a child is what I think is at the roots of it. I think that they get empowered by taking the innocence of a child and taking something away from that child. So I don't think castration is 100% effective, or even like, I think it's like 60 to 70% effective, but I'm here for it. Let's cut their shit
That's
off, bro.
effective enough. You know what's so funny is I'm sitting over here being like, thinking that I don't, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I don't know why I thought like castration was like
Circumcision?
surgically removing the dick and the balls, like a Ken. Like he's just a Ken doll down there, but with holes. I'm such an idiot. I don't know why, because I was about to be like, he can still use his hands. No, Chloe, go back to sleep. That was
Well, so when somebody's castrated, it's their is not going to perform in the same way.
So the desire is like, less.
They could still use elbows, fingers, and toes, I guess. I don't know. But they do this. That castrated men still offend. You know who doesn't reoffend?
Dead pedophiles.
Dead pedophiles don't reoffend, homie. Just a thing.
Okay, well, you know what? I think I'm going to end this because I really have to pee and I need to eat. And I did my first workout today, guys. I started with my trainer today. It was my first workout, and I actually feel pretty good, but I'm going to hate myself tomorrow. So I'm going to go jump in the bath, and then I have another video to record. So I've got a long night ahead of me, but it's such a pleasure to have you here. And guys, everybody go raid Chris Hansen's channel and tell them that we need a show together, because like, people would definitely pay to do that. Are you joking? It's really like the new age. Like there would be some rules. Obviously, I'm sure there were some things that you can't say, but like you could you got this deep gargly voice, man. Like just this deep, like Zeus thunderous voice that like if I was a pedophile caught red-handed dick out and you're standing there screaming at me, I might just kill myself right there. Do the world a favor. Like it would be the best TV, man. It would be really good. And we would be making a difference, which is like the fucking most important part is building awareness around this stuff. And I feel like in the later years, Chris Hansen got censored a lot. And I don't really know why. I don't think that's fair. I don't see a lot of his stuff around as much anymore. Like I was always watching his YouTube channels and I just don't see a lot of it anymore. And I think it's because he's getting censored. Like they're not advertising his content the way that they used to. And I don't really know why. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I mean, he's great. He's great on TikTok and Insta, and he's over here on YouTube, but mainly on the True Blue. And he also has a podcast, an audio podcast.
Yes, I listened to it.
I was recently on. It was a huge thing for me to be able to sit down and talk to Chris and now be friends with him and his wife. They're amazing people. I've been super blessed through this whole content creation thing. Never really thought that a bunch of people would want to hear what a dusty old convict had to say, but people have been really kind to me. And I want to thank everybody who came over from my community and all of our mutuals and everybody who's been so kind to me from Roma's community. And Roma, I want to thank you so much for having me over here tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure. And anytime that you want to do a collab again, I'm more than happy to do it. There will be a video that we recorded last night coming out on for my community soon. So thank you, everybody. Me too.
Thank you so much, JD. Everybody say goodbye, and thank you to everybody on JD's side for watching and tuning in. We're tuning now and tuning in. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Yeah, we're hawk tuning. We're tuning, but without the hawk.
One love, y'all.
See you guys.
Thank you.